is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated.
Four days late, but they say better late than never. I am Drew Willingham. We are here to recap Week 11, preview Week 12, what we have left of it, and a whole lot more on this edition of Total Football Talk. What's that, everybody? Welcome back to Total Football Talk. I'm one of your co-hosts, Drew Willingham. We are missing the EP of all EPs, but it has been a very busy week for both Cole and myself. A very, very wild week, which is why you're seeing not extra right now. You're seeing Total Football Talk. And I really miss my man, Cole Johnson, especially when I'm still trying to get used to wearing a hat on the air to shield the bright lights for the green screen. And I keep headbutting the microphone, but that's what they do in football. It's pounding action each and every time they're on the gridiron. And that's what I'm here to bring you tonight as I headbutted it again. Hopefully you guys are entertained as we got Dante and Sick already here in the house. What's up, fellas? And congrats on the win. We're going to recap that tonight. Even though that was 8 days ago, it was still part of Week 11. And we'll preview Week 12 and, of what's left of it. But thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate the support out here in these streams. Couldn't do it without you. That's why we keep rocking and rolling each and every week. Sick Diggy says, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. He also says, what's good, everybody, as what's good with yourself there, brother. I'm going to go ahead and click this button for all of y'all right now.
What's that?
With that.
My guys, appreciate y'all being here in the house. The only person we are missing from the usual crew is somebody get our guy Vicola up in these streams. Now, when it comes to all of that, we got a lot of football to talk about here on this episode. Again, I'm not sure if Cole will be able to make it. We've both had a pretty busy week this week. I'm just glad to be able to find time to get it in. But we're going to go ahead and start this opening drive off with getting it started for one, but also with last week's Thursday night game.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready?
And with that being said, the Thursday night game. Now, not last night's Thursday night Snowball Fest over in Cleveland, where the Steelers really let me down on the money line over there, but we'll talk about that another time because we're recovering last week's Thursday game at this point. We got to talk about the Commanders and the Eagles last week. And this was a pretty close game and score at the end, but in all honesty, this game right here, the Eagles had from the jump. I mean, They had their foot on the gas and they kept rocking and rolling from start to end. And I'm being humble here. You know, I am one that likes the competitive rivalries between teams and sports. You gotta look at what I'm rocking in colors. I mean, Sartoba Media is literally got Commanders, formerly known as the REDSKINS, colors. All right. So I'm wearing it on my sleeve. I'm even wearing the Commanders hoodie to show love today because they've had a really good season. But when you face really good teams of caliber that's better than you, you get humbled. And, you know, I even predicted the Eagles to win this game by 7 points or less. Wouldn't be shocked if it was by 10 points or less. And I was about right because they won by 8. You know, they won by literally 8 points out there in this game. And 26-18, respectable score. But even though the Commanders had a 7-point lead in the first quarter, and then going into the second quarter, the Eagles scored a field goal. At halftime, it was 7-3. Now, you're probably saying, Drew, why are you saying that you felt like the Eagles were in control for the beginning throughout the end when they were not winning at halftime? The momentum was just on their side. They're in Philly for one. Even going through the third quarter when both teams could only put up a field goal and the Commanders were up 10-6. I was still telling people, I was like, look, this score is way too motherfathering close. You cannot get excited about this score right here. There's a really good potential that the Eagles are going to score and run away with this game. And I was right because I've watched enough of these games over the years. The Eagles still have a very talented squad. They're only 2 years removed, not even 2 years yet, from the Super Bowl where they were damn near close in winning the game. All right. So when you look at it for what it is, you got to put respect on their name. If they were the Giants, no. Sorry, I'm just being real. Like, they are absolute dumpster pelicans. And if you saw the news today of Daniel Jones getting released after he was put on the third mother-fathering string earlier this week after his performance this past weekend, then you wouldn't argue with me on that. And the Cowboys are just absolute trash right now. All right. So the only two teams that are good in the NFC East were the ones that played last Thursday night. And that was between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. The being in Philly, they had home field advantage for one. But they also have the chemistry advantage over the Commanders right now because this is the first year the Commanders have been truly successful in a very long time. They still have things to learn. They still have growth that they have to experience. It's going to be a while until they are of the caliber of the Philadelphia Eagles. So they put up a pretty good fight. Yes, they are pretty respectable for 3 quarters. But when it came to clock management in the fourth quarter, that's where they screwed themselves. It's part of clock management, but also knowing your players. It's still very early in the season for this team to figure things out. I mean, very early in their tenure to figure things out in this new era of new ownership, new coaching, and new talent on the roster. They got 17 new starters out of 22 starters between offense and defense when you calculate the 11 players that play on each side. So all that put in perspective, you think about that for a second, and what the Eagles have been building for several years now, can't be surprised on what happened. Now, overall stats of the game, I gave you my overview of what I saw, but Jalen Hurts was 18-28 for 221 passing yards, also added 10 carries for 39 yards and a touchdown. Rushing, that is. He didn't have any passing touchdowns. Saquon Barkley added on the day. It was a very, very big day on the ground for the Eagles as Barkley had 26 carries for 146 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He also put up 2 receptions for 52 yards. And that's right, only 2 receptions, 52 yards, averaging 26 yards per catch. Saquon was on fire in this game. He was my MVP of this game, which I'll talk more about that on the Commander's Gridiron Report either later tonight, if honestly I get a chance to do it with everything going on, or it'll be by tomorrow afternoon. At the latest. I'll get it in before the next game, I promise. The Eagles' offense, like I was saying, big day on the ground. 228 rushing yards between everybody that touched the ball and ran it in this game. That was the huge statistic that led to this victory for the Eagles in last Thursday's contest. Reed Blankenship also added an interception for the Eagles' defense, was a big contributing factor in putting the game away later on. Jaden Daniels had 22 completions out of 32 attempts, only 191 passing yards, though. had a touchdown, but also threw that one interception that he had on the day to Reed Blankenship, like I just previously mentioned, which made a big impact in how things went. Now, he also had 7 carries, when it came to rushing, but on the ground, he only put up 18 rushing yards. So he had a very lackluster performance when you compare Jaden Daniels' rushing statistics against other teams. But it's like I told you guys on this show. I told you. I said, this team hasn't really been truly tested consistently throughout this season. There have been some matchups between the Ravens, even though the Buccaneers have had a mediocre year, they were tested in week 1 with them. You had the Steelers, and then now you have this, which got you your 4th loss of the season. I told you. I said, these are the teams that are more likely going to serve a big, fat, juicy son of a mother fathering. Where's the button? It's going to serve you a big, fat. Sorry, I misplaced the button. But yes, I said if those 4 teams along the way, and other people are like, the Commanders are good, no, they're going to win these games. No, I'm telling you guys. Said it last week, said the Eagles were going to win. I said it on this show. I said it on the Commanders Gridiron Report. I might even find a way to throw a little segment of it into Total Football Talk Extra. Can't remember. It's been a lot going on. But what I can tell you is you can go back and check it out. Let me know if I did or not. With this, I was proud to see what I saw with the fight that the Commanders kept plugging throughout. They kept a lead throughout 3 quarters. But once it got to the 4th quarter, the time where it matters the most, they fell apart. And that's the biggest stat line of the day. So looking at it for what it was, you also had Austin Eckler, who had 2 carries for 7 yards with 8 receptions for 89 yards for the Commanders. And Frankie Louisville on the defense added 6 solo tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks. So he was a big part of why the Commanders kept it close throughout the 3 quarters. But, there's 11 players on each side. And if you run out of gas with everybody else, but you only got one person really contributing, then that's a recipe for disaster. And that's why things fell apart. But when it comes to the comments, Dante says, a lot of Saquon's yards came in the 4th. Can't believe we stuck with the run. Yes, but it paid off. Where a lot of teams would abandon the run at that point, you stuck with it, and it paid dividends. All that matters is what the score is at the very end. He also says, do you like the 4th down play call? No. If you would have punted it, there's a decent opportunity that you would have been able to stop it and get the ball back and then have another true shot. So I do not like that 4th down call. I was about to get to that. Very, very, very good there, Dante. Stupid kicker missing kicks, but bad weekend for kickers. It absolutely was. I mean, the weather started to shift. When you look at how things were with just last night's game with the Steelers and the Browns with the snow, was it like that in Philly? No, but there's some wind contributing factors, temperature. When temperature drops, it affects how things go with special teams. It has definitely been proven in the past there, my man. So I definitely understand that. Kickers missing kicks, it's going to happen. And we still have a 3rd string kicker, if you really look at it, because they released McManus, the Commanders did early on because of the allegations against him. Then, with Seibert, he's hurt. He's on the disabled list right now. This Zane Gonzalez guy kicked a 45-yard field goal for our team. But for your team, yes, I definitely understand Jake Elliott missing 2 out of 4 field goals and only putting up a long of 31 and contributing only 8 points on the day would definitely contribute to some stressful times within the game. But all that matters is that at the end, the scoreboard was in your favor and you got the dub, and you did not, like my team, get served the... Hey, it is what it is. Rivalry games, division rivalry games are always impactful, and they make a dent in your season. So the Eagles are more likely going to win this division. You should feel pretty good about that. 6 says, this is big, fat, brought to you by Sleazeball Meaty Subs, Thanksgiving Turkey Roast. Happy Thanksgiving, folks. It's coming from Sick Diggy, our man with the ads. Also says, Gosmack Thirst Quencher, brand new cranberry and lime. It's not just good, it's smacking great. I'm going to make that into a short later. That was fun. Thank you, Sick. Keep them coming. This big fat L is brought to you by. I might have to save that later for another one that we do. I'm gonna save that one for later and then click the button. This big fat. Click it, and it is brought to you by. Yeah, there it is. Dante says the Commanders are a good team, but I don't know how big. I still see them having a chance of making the wild card, making the playoffs as a wild card, but they'll probably be one and done in the first round. It's just. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, I'm just grateful to be where we're at this point as a fan of the team and as someone who covers them. I'm just happy that they're where they're at, and it's still looking pretty positive for them at this point in the year. Because this point last year, it was miserable to be a fan of the team. It was miserable to try to even conduct a show about the team last year, and I gave it so much heart. I had so much belief in Sam Howell, and I'm glad I was wrong. I'm glad I was wrong, but we've spent a good amount of time on the Commanders and Eagles. And with that being said, Dante also adds in, if it was our defense or y'all's offense didn't come to play, I think it was the defense, to be honest. I wouldn't say that the offense came to play. I just think that your defense, I mean, Jalen Carter was pretty big in this game. And, you know, you got to look at the pieces that you guys have picked up, pieces where people haven't really been behaving off the field, but you give them a chance. Not necessarily like Aaron Hernandez situation with the Patriots back in the day, but you've had to give some people some chances, and they're starting to prove themselves. The big thing is, and it's the same thing no matter what sport you're playing, you have to maintain a level of consistency. If you can maintain a level of consistency, then that's a recipe for success. You did it a couple years ago, got you all the way to the Super Bowl, just fell just short. You can remain consistent. Who knows? You could be back in the NFC Championship easy this year, but I don't know if you're going to get past that Detroit Lions team. That's such a good team. And shout out to my man Hawk. Shout out to Sick Diggy for saying that I nailed it. I appreciate it. With that being said, guys, we've gone through last Thursday night's game. Let's go ahead and take it to the beginning of the Sunday game recaps. And with that being said, got to look at the teams that were on bye from this past week. The New York Giants, thankfully, because when I said Daniel Jones's his performance, I meant from the previous week, because that's what Cole and I just talked about last time we were on here. But it's weird that a team waits until after the bye week to not only announce the benching of a quarterback, but they also then release him after putting him on third string, and they still have to pay him nearly $2 million a week. Don't even get me started. $2 million, it's like $1.97 million a week for the rest of the season. Can't even fathom. That's like another 6 weeks. He's gonna make like another 10, 11, $12 million. What in the father is going on out here? You just get to sit at home and collect a check. Must be nice. But anyway, beyond that, that's not the only team that was on bye this past week. The Arizona Cardinals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Carolina Panthers were also on bye. So I want to make sure that I covered that, because I just straight jumped into this past Thursday night's game without acknowledging the bye teams. All right. Now to our actual first Sunday game. This was an absolute dumpster Pelican matchup. It was a total. I mean, arguably, it was this. That game was between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions, okay? The Jaguars go into Detroit. They only put up 6 points. How many does Detroit put up? They put up 52 mother-fathering points right after the game that Jared Goff had just thrown 5 interceptions. Came into this game, against the Jaguars. Didn't throw a single interception. He was 24 of 29, only 5 incompletions of the day for 412 mother-fathering yards, 4 touchdowns. Again, no interceptions. 4 carries for 21 yards as well on the day, and he is not known for rushing the ball. He's got white boy legs. He does not run the ball that great. 4 carries, 21 yards. That's how it is. Still pretty decent. Got to give a shout out to old GJ or JJ, JG. There it is for Jared Goff, not golf. Goff, you know what's up because you watch football too. Look at David Montgomery over there on the running statistics as well. 15 carries on the day between him and Goff at 19 carries is a pretty good amount of rushing attempts for your offense. As out of his 15 attempts, he had 75 yards for 2 rushing touchdowns. Also added 3 receptions for 20 yards on the mother-father day receiving. Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 carries for 69 yards as well. He also had a touchdown between the two of them. Not just Goff, but looking at Jahmyr Gibbs. Goff and Montgomery, they all combined for 30 carries on the day. But Gibbs had that 69 yards as well, just as much almost as Montgomery, and a touchdown. Also adds 1 reception for 54 yards. The man almost went to the house for another touchdown, but he took that reception, 54 yards, and set them up for another mother-father score. The Detroit Lions are for real, and they are still my NFC pick to go to the Super Bowl. Now, beyond that, got to look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. He had a carry, a big carry for -4 yards. Got to throw a little shade there while I have it. But when you look at that stat line and you look at the other side of it, he had 11 receptions for 161 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. The only shade I could throw is at his 1 lone rushing statistic, but you can't throw any shade at his receptions because he has been the next generation's version of Megatron for the Detroit Lions. You got to give it up for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jamison Williams had a carry for 2 yards. Again, you might be saying, Drew, why are you throwing all this shade on the receivers? But when you look at the other side, as I'm having a little fun with that, he also adds 4 receptions for 124 receiving yards and a touchdown. These two have been one great duo of receivers. 1A and 1B come together to unite for nearly 300 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns in a game. It's absolutely insane. That's why this team put up 52 points, but also because Jared Goff was able to throw for over 400 yards as well. Lions offense combined with all the statistics at 449 passing yards, 195 rushing yards with 0 sacks allowed. Shout out to my man Hawk. I know he loves to hear stat lines like that from his Detroit Lions. Now, Kirby Joseph adds an interception on defense, and Jake Bates had a 54-yard field goal to help seal the stats and the points scored for this Detroit Lions team. When you look at the other side, a quarterback filling in for another one, a man amongst boys, I guess you could say. Mac Jones, Mac and Cheese is what I used to call him last year on Total Football Talk. Put up 17 completions for 29 20-time passing attempts, 138 passing yards, an interception with 2 carries for 7 yards as well. Dumpster Pelican-esque numbers on the day for Mac and Cheese. Welcome back to the game there, sir. Brian Thomas Jr. added 5 receptions for 82 yards. He was the highlight for the Jaguars team, as there wasn't much else beyond him. It was a highlight. He did add a carry for 4 yards as well. And Cam Little, kicker for the Jaguars, the little kicker, had 2 completed field goals out of 2 attempts with the long of 59 mother-fathering yards. Congratulations there, Mr. Little and Mr. Thomas, because you two overshadowed Mac and Cheese on the day. Did a great job, but your team absolutely was terrible, as you looked like a bunch of dumpster mother, and Pelicans. You were the top-tier dumpster Pelican of the league. Right there, you like that clip? I'll click it one more time. You were the top-tier dumpster mother, and Pelican of the league. There it is. Got a comment over here. Let's see what's happening. Dante says, I still stand by Philly or Washington knocks the Lions out the playoffs. That would be not only the upset of the week then, but the upset of the year. I'm going to clip that out since my man Hawk is going to love that. So now, with being said, got to go beyond this and look at the Mac and Cheese game. Mac and Cheese was absolutely terrible in his Jaguars Lions game. Shout out to the Lions for getting it done. We still have a whole lot more games to cover on this, but right now, I think a lot of people are enjoying seeing the Jaguars because of their ownership. Take this. Word to your mother. Let's go to the next one. Now, Green Bay Packers come to town in Chicago. A team that has absolutely fell apart since the Hail Mary game. A game that I was in attendance for. A game that I enjoyed very, very much as not only a fan, but somebody who covers the Washington Commanders. Somebody who covers football. Somebody who absolutely loves the game and hates teams that are way too cocky, and especially Fingernail Man. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. I don't hate you. I just don't like your fan base. That's all it is. I'm going to stop whispering now and get back to being energetic about this next game, because this game right here between the Packers and the Bears was pretty tight. It was a pretty close game. Overall, I must say, I enjoyed it. And a lot of people have been sleeping on the Packers this year. And no, I'm not wearing a Packer green hoodie that has my name pointed the wrong side over here. Gotta shift the chair. This is a commies that a fan of Sartoba Media on the hat made for me. Now, again, not Packers, this Commanders. But with the Packers and the Chicago Bears, it was one expletive of a game because the Packers came to town red hot. They have been this year. They are, again, one of my sleeper teams for this year. 13-17 for completions Jordan Love had on this day. 261 passing yards is what he had as well. A touchdown, an interception, along with 4 carries for 18 yards. Not huge statistics, but he put up a rushing touchdown to have 2 touchdowns total on the day, which helped get the edge over the Chicago Bears. Josh Jacobs also did his job on the ground. Had 18 carries for 76 mother-fathering yards on the ground. Also had a touchdown rushing as well. He had 4 receptions for 58 yards that contributed towards a pretty decent receiving core on the day when you look at Christian Watson, who had 4 receptions for 150 receiving yards. Then you look at Caleb Williams on the other side, Fingernail Man, 23 of 31 for 231 yards, 9 receptions for 70 yards. Oh, no, 9 carries for 70 yards. I read that wrong. I went to Colonial Heights High School back in the day. There it is. There's your joke for this one. Let me know in the comments if you liked it, if you laughed a little, if you cried a little, if you had a tear in your eye, like Ric Flair would say. Now, back to this. Fingernail Man puts the contributions up for his team. DeAndre Swift on the ground added 14 carries for 71 yards for the Bears and a rushing touchdown, which helped keep things close. 2 receptions for 13 mother-fathering yards. The Bears offense put up 179 rushing yards on the day between Fingernail Man and DeAndre Swift combined did great numbers for that. Terrell Smith on the defense added an interception. And Cario Santos added 2 field goals out of 3 attempts, with one of those a long for 53 yards. Now, looking at this game for what it was a very, very tight game. It was probably juggled in there between the game of the week or not. It was a top-tier game, but the game later that is selected as the game of the week, I think you will agree, is for the best. Because when you look at the Packers and the Bears, it was only a 7-3 game after the first quarter. The Packers were up by 4 points. Then in the next quarter, the Bears scored the only score of that quarter between the two teams as they were up 10-7 going into halftime. Then in the third quarter, Bears, all they could do was kick mother, father, and field goals. And to the Packers, they scored another touchdown. So the score at this time was 19-14, the Bears going into the fourth quarter. The Packers were able to put up 6 more points to take the lead, take the game by 1 point there at the end, and win 20-19. If you're a fan of these two teams, you had a pretty enjoyable game. But for me, I would say I just enjoyed watching the Bears take the... I'm sorry. It's just a personal opinion. Not trying to spread any toxicity out here in these streams. Just being real, okay? Take it for as it is. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. Let me know in the comments. I'll work on myself as a human being. You should too. Look in the mirror, okay? At least I'm not a typical chameleon. All right. So now let's go back out here and get back to our next game and cover that. Now, with this game, you may disagree with me or with this or not, but I think it was another one of those. When you have a team that's playing pretty decent, is undefeated through the first 5 weeks of the season, and they're playing a team on the road going into a house of a team that's an absolute known as the Tennessee Titans. I say this game is bowl and shoe ugly because on paper, the Minnesota Vikings should have came into town and absolutely mollywopped this Tennessee Titans team that is absolutely trash. But they didn't. They beat them. I mean, of course, you could say scoreboard. I mean, I know, add and subtract. But look at it for what it is. This Tennessee Titans team absolutely sucks. Okay. I mean, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I'm just being 1,000% upfront about it. This team sucks. Really does. All right? Really does. Minnesota Vikings are for real. Now, I've been saying this. There's a lot of people out there saying they are pretenders. I'm saying they're a contender. I think that if it's not the Eagles and the Lions and the NFC Championship game, it could, depending on seeding, could find a way for the Vikings and Lions to be in the NFC Championship game. And no, I'm not smoking the lettuce before I'm coming up here. I'm just telling you how I feel. Okay. But with this game, with the Minnesota Vikings and the Tennessee Titans, the Vikings didn't really help defend my case with this when you're only beating the team 23-13. And I know you're saying to yourself right now, Drew, is a double-digit victory. It's only 10 points against a team that shouldn't have scored but maybe a field goal. You still gave up 10 extra points to a dumpster Pelican team known as the Tennessee Titans. Yes, I know you served the... But it doesn't mean a thing if it's not decisive enough against a team that still shouldn't have only put up just a field goal. But I'm going to let that argument be put to bed as we talk about what actually happened in this game. Sam Darnold comes into town at Tennessee, completes 20 passes, but on 32 attempts at 12 incompletions for only 246 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. But he was smart enough that out of those 12 incompletions, none of them went for interceptions. He had no fumbles, turnovers, or whatever as the quarterback on the day for the Vikings. Because I'd really be roasting him right now if he did this against the Tennessee Titans. But in comparison to that, he also added another 8 carries on the day for 18 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. So collectively, the man had 3 total touchdowns. Justin Jefferson had 6 receptions on the day for 81 reception yards, but did not haul in any of those 2 receiving touchdowns from Sam Darnold. Andrew Van Ginkel on the Vikings defense was a big contributor when he put up 7 solo tackles for 3 total tackles for loss and 2 quarterback hits. He also had 2 sacks on the day. Pat Jones II had 4 solo tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hits and 2 sacks. The Vikings defense was absolutely putting the pressure on the Titans, but it's the Tennessee Titans. It's really not that hard to do that. They're like a step above the Carolina Panthers. They got human turnstiles for offensive linemen that just do this. They just look like they're spinning round and around, round and around, round and around. That's what it seems like. More so the Panthers. But the Titans have their woe is me tail time too. All right. Vikings defense collectively, besides Van Ginkel and Pat Jones II, put up 5 total sacks on the day. Along with Harrison Smith having an interception, again, this defense was absolutely mollywopping the easily mollywoppable Titans. Will Levis. Oh, Willie. Willie the Levis. I'm D. Willie, but this man's Willie the Levis. As you look at this man right here, boy, man, whatever you want to say, 17 completions out of 31 attempts, 295 yards, and a touchdown passing along with an interception. He did also have 7 carries for 18 yards on the day. Nick Westbrook Iskine. Did I read that right? Ickine. I don't think I've talked about this guy before, so I'm going to leave him alone with the shade. Ickine. Westbrook Ickine. 2 receptions, 117 receiving yards for a receiving touchdown. The one highlight of the Titans is a man that I can barely announce his last name. It's kind of like Liram on Total Football Talk Extra, the kicker that I will be going over with Ryan McCarthy tomorrow on Total Football Talk Extra, the next edition. Now, with this game collectively, all right, the Vikings and the Titans. This is one game that I almost just said I was going to erase from the slate, but Cole put in time to this thing. I didn't want to waste any of the time he put into it, so I had to give it the due diligence of talking about it and at least putting the shine on Ickine, Nick Westbrook Ickine, because that is one pretty cool name. Because looking at this all together, it was 16 to mother, father, and 3 at halftime. The Vikings and the Titans. This game was absolutely ugly, all right? You go into the third quarter. Both teams put up a touchdown. It was like you let them walk in. The Vikings let them just walk on in and score a touchdown. We feel bad for you because we're up 23-3. You can have a touchdown. You get a prize. And you get a prize. And you get a prize is what it felt like for at least 2 out of 3 plays. In the third quarter, all the Titans could put up was a field goal, and the game ended 23-13. Too close for comfort, but you still serve that big fat L to the Titans. And that's all I want to talk about with this game. Moving on to the next one. We got to take a look at this next game that we have on the slate, and that is between the Uncle Rico-led Las Vegas Raiders traveling to Miami to take on Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. This game this past Sunday, Dolphins straight made, I can't say that on the air. Basically, the Dolphins were the daddies to the Raiders in this game as the Dolphins won 34-19 at home. Tua Tagovailoa puts up 28 completions passed on the day for 36 passing attempts, 288 passing yards for 3 mother-fathering touchdowns. Davon Akane had 17 carries, 73 total rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. He also added 4 receptions for 32 yards on the day as well. Jonnu Smith, the man, the myth, the legend, the tight end of the team, had 6 receptions for 101 reception yards and 2 touchdowns. Jalen Ramsey on defense even contributed to this game, had an interception, but it's pretty easy to do against the Uncle Rico-led Raiders at this point. Speaking of Uncle Rico, he did complete more passes on the day than Tua in the loss. He had 30 completed mother-fathering passes to 43 passing attempts for 282 passed yards. Uncle Rico was the mother-fathering man for the Raiders offense until he threw the interception. Okay. He did lose by double-digit points, Rico, and I'm not going to let that go. All right. I'm just not. I'm not. 282 passing yards, 2 touchdowns on the day for Uncle Rico, that 1 interception to Jalen Ramsey. He also did throw up a molly-whopping 2 carries for 7 mother-fathering yards. Good job, Uncle Rico. The one thing we did have in common is, at least up until a few months ago, I had 22 inches of long hair. I had you beat in the hair, brother, but I can't beat you on the 30 completions in a game, though. I can't do that at this point in my life. I could never do it. I wasn't a quarterback, but I can at least say, good on you for completing 30 passes in this game, but you still lost by 15 points. Now, looking at the other highlight, Brock Bowers had 13 receptions for the Raiders, 126 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. He also did put up 1 lone carry for -3 mother-fathering yards. It's absolutely great. Good job on the rookie tight end. Great job on long hair flowing Uncle Rico, but you still got served that big fat. Are you in our mother, father, and team? Let me know in the comments, because we are live right now, whether you're watching on YouTube on Comey Media, whether you're watching on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome, or if you're watching on LinkedIn, or for the rare occurrence, if you're watching on Face, Mother, Father, and Book. Let me know what's up here in the comments. Now, with that dumpster fire of a game led by some dumpster Pelicans in this game, the Raiders are probably the second or third highest ranked dumpster Pelican of the week. And this season has been a total for them. What do you think? Talk to me out here as we go to the next game. Now, to the next game that we have here on the slate. Got to take a look at the LA Rams, who have been rebuilding themselves within a year, coming back from injuries to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua in this game. We have to take a look at this for what it is when the LA Rams score 28 points on the road against the New England Patriots. Looking at this game for what it is. Matthew Stafford had 18 passes completed out of 27 attempts, 295 passing yards with 4 interceptions and 4 carries for 0 yards, which was totally that being the rushing yards. 4 carries for 0 yards. Come on, bro. I mean, I know you're like 36, 37 years old. I know we're similar in age, but come on, you've got to be able to run the ball. I believe in you. You are not I'm just messing with Matthew Stafford. You do have a Super Bowl. Congratulations on you. And I don't think Detroit misses you, but they're happy for you for getting a Super Bowl at this point, because they look like they're about to get one themselves. All right, back on track. Kieran Williams for this team, for the Rams, 15 carries for 86 yards on the day on the ground. Puka Nacua, as I just talked about, coming back from injury not too long ago, 7 receptions for 123 receiving yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp also adds 6 receptions for 106 yards and not 1, but 2 receiving touchdowns on the day. Braden Fisk adds 2 tackles for loss on defense for the Rams with 2 quarterback hits and 2 sacks on the day. Cameron Kinchins also adds an interception to help seal the deal over the New England Patriots. Drake May for the Patriots on the quarterback side of their team had 30 completed passes, some more completions than Matthew Stafford, similar to Uncle Rico in the previous game we just talked about, where he had more completions in the team with the quarterback who won than on the other side. Because Drake May had 30 completions for 40 attempts for 282 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. They probably tipped the scales in this game, to be honest with you, because of how close it was with a 6-point game. He also had 3 carries for 27 yards on the day with a lost fumble. Ramondre Stevenson on the ground had 20 carries for 73 yards with 4 receptions for 16 yards on the day. And Joey Sly for the Patriots was perfect on the day of field goals, 3 for 3. You could argue that they wouldn't have been as close with not only Joey Sly being perfect on a day, but also with Drake May having pretty decent statistics, but the lost fumble that he had, along with the interception, sealed their fate for the day. I don't think it was a dumpster Pelican matchup for this team because it was close, But, you know, however you want to word it, how fancy you want to get it, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the Rams still serve the... There it is. Hey, Pizzle's in the house. Saying Dr. Drew out here. I appreciate you jumping in here, brother. It's been a while. I got to catch one of your podcasts, too. We got to get up. Hopefully, I can get you on here, talk a little sports at some point soon. My work schedule has been absolutely ridiculous, along with some personal things I got going on, too. Just glad to be able to fit this episode in, so that way Cole's hard work on the slate doesn't go to waste, because I don't like seeing anybody's preparation going to waste. So I'm doing this for myself, but also for my guy too, because he set us up for 4 days ago and we just didn't have a chance to make it happen. But we are tonight on Friday. As Dante says, yeah, these games were bad. I know, but we wouldn't be Total Football Talk if we didn't talk about all the games, regardless of how bad they were or not. So right here and now, let's go ahead and take it to games that were absolutely better and not completely... Take it into more Sunday games. I knew there was a button I was forgetting to click earlier. All right, now back to this. I know this one team played last night, but we are still reviewing Sunday games from the past Week 11 contest. Cleveland Browns put up 14 points on the road against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans, who put up 35 themselves. They ended up winning this game, a team that's been looking like absolute trash throughout this year at different points. Well, both teams. When you look at Deshaun Watson when he was playing for the Browns, and then the Saints for what they've been doing over there. But Derek Carr had a little bit of a resurgence in this game against the Cleveland Browns defense that has been pretty solid for them, which is the only success they've really had this year. Derek Carr put up 21 completions out of 27 attempts for 248 passing yards, along with 2 passing touchdowns. He had a carry for 8 yards on the day as well. Taysom Hill had 7 carries for 138 yards on the day. 138 rushing yards for Taysom Hill. The dude still got it. He also had 3 rushing touchdowns. Not 1, not 2, but 3 rushing touchdowns. Absolutely great when you look at that for what he is. He's worth the money over there in New Orleans when you give him the opportunities. But he did have a miscue in the game. Can't get too far ahead. Because although he had 8 receptions for 50 yards and collectively he had 188 yards between the ground and the air that day, he had a lost fumble. But it didn't matter because they still won by 21 points. So it's all good. They forgive you on this day and on that day. They're Taysom Hill. Keep that up in games that are going to decide the fate, whether it's be by 1 possession or not. They're not going to forgive you as easy. Just saying. Alvin Kamara also added 16 receptions for 67 yards on the day, with 4 receptions for 22 yards. Saints offense had 214 rushing yards on that day. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 2 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. Brian Breezy had 2 quarterback hits on defense that included 1.5 sacks. Man, putting pressure on the Cleveland Browns offense, and definitely affected Jameis Winston. Captain Crab Legs. Call him Captain Crab Legs because of what he did back in the day. If you don't know, do your research on Google. Captain Crab Legs was in the game this past week. All right? What did Captain Crab Legs do? Wore that captain's C pretty decently. This Captain Crab Legs. Because out there, he put up 30 completions on the day for 46 completion attempts. He had 395 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns and a carry for 8 mother-fathering yards. Good job, Jameis. He also had Jerry Jeudy, who had 6 receptions for 142 receiving yards on that day. But that wasn't all. Jeudy added a touchdown. Jeudy got touchdown. Jeudy got touchdown. Could that be a song? A remix? The Baby Got Back? I don't know. Jeudy got touchdown. I don't know, man. You tell me out here in the comments. I can't think of music and writing it while I'm talking football. But what I can tell you is David Njoku also added 9 receptions for 81 receiving yards on the day. Denzel Ward had an interception for their defense, but it didn't make too much of a difference because you still lost by 21 points. After that, Yeah, look at Dustin Hopkins on the day for the Browns special teams who missed 2 field goals. Now, would those 6 points would have contributed towards a victory? No, but it's still not good. It still helps contribute towards the you like it or not. That's all I'm saying about that. This game was absolutely terrible, but we had to cover it. Now let's try to get to a better one. I can't even help you out with that right away because this one was awesome. I had to sigh before I went over this one. I mean, I had to sigh just because, like Dante had brought up earlier, we saw some bad games this past weekend, and this was one of them. The Atlanta Falcons travel to Denver in the altitude, take on the Broncos. Broncos put up 38 points at home to the Falcons 6. Bo Nix had 28 completions out of 33 attempts for the rookie. He's trying to make the argument that he believes that he's in the top conversations for rookie of the year. Even with what Jaden Daniels has done over there for Washington, I think he's going to edge him out. But Bo Nix is going to definitely be in the top 2 to 3 conversation because of what he's done. The Broncos started to turn things around. Sean Payton is definitely looking like a genius for taking Bo Nix when he did at this point. Because, again, only 5 incompletions, had 307 passing yards. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 passing touchdowns. The rookie didn't even throw an interception, didn't fumble the ball at all during the game either. He's doing his job. Now, quarterbacks that can run the ball are also an added commodity, but he's not part of that group, though, at least, because he did have 2 carries, but he only had 5 rushing yards on the day. So when you think about everything, when you put it all into perspective for what it is, he doesn't need to run because you got Javonte Williams back there who had 9 carries on the day for 59 yards and a touchdown, 4 receptions for 28 yards as well. Nick Bonatti had 4 solo tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. He also had 2 sacks on the day out of all those stat lines. The Broncos defense collectively had 4 sacks on the day, and Cody Barton put up an interception. The one highlight for the Falcons, because, again, they only put up 6 points on the day, I'd have to say would be Kirk Cousins, who was 18 passes completed for 27 completion attempts, 173 passing yards on the day with an interception. He also did add a carry for 0 yards, but I'm going to leave him alone on that because it was a single carry. And it was more likely a partial sack on that. So even though it was an ugly game, we still had to cover it. Let's go to a better one now, please. And a better one it is, I promise. This game, not the game of the week, but it is definitely a game that will be remembered between the Seahawks and the 49ers. This game, I definitely want to take a little bit of time, a little bit of extra time to talk about in comparison to the previous games, because the previous few games we talked about were absolutely terrible. But this one, when we talk about the caliber of play from Geno Smith, when we talk about the caliber of play from the 49ers for what they've been known for the past half decade, they've been rebuilding themselves. Shanahan era, they made the trade for Christian McCaffrey a couple of years ago. They stumbled upon Brock Purdy in a late rounds draft pick. And then, Mr. Irrelevant coming out there and doing what he's doing. But they've also had the injury bug throughout this year, coming off a pretty successful year last year, getting to here. They've had the injury bug. So coming into this game early on with the 49ers and the Seahawks, it was looking like the 49ers were going to have the edge because, for one, this team on the day had the advantage of being at home, all right? And after the first quarter, they were up 7-3. Going into halftime, it was tight. It was a 7-6 game. But going into the third quarter, the Seahawks were starting to take the edge. They scored another touchdown, and all the 49ers could do was score a field goal. So after 3 quarters, It was 13-10. It was still only a 3-point game. It was pretty close, but there was something in the air that just felt like there was going to be an upset because the money was on the 49ers for a lot of people. And you couldn't go wrong with that when you think about what they've been able to do and the fact that McCaffrey's back. They're starting to regain the chemistry, the flow, and try to get some type of momentum shift for themselves. And it looked like it was going to be possible for that within the first half. But luckily for Seahawks fans and for the game of football, there is a second half to the game. Now, again, second half of the game. So Geno Smith leads this team to another touchdown in the fourth quarter, and they eventually win the game 20-17. Now, on this day, Geno Smith, he had 221 passing yards. He had completed 25 passes out of 32 attempts. He did throw an interception. He could not get the ball into the end zone in the air himself. He did throw that one interception, but he did make up for it on the ground as he had 4 carries for 29 yards and got a touchdown late in the game. Jackson Smith-Njigba had 10 receptions for 110 yards, along with a carry for 8 yards on the ground as well. Jonathan Hankins had an interception for the Seahawks defense. And on the special teams side, Jason Myers was 2 of 2 for field goals with a long of 57 yards, doing his job for special teams, doing his job for this Seahawks team, and helping getting the dub for their team. Brock Purdy on the other side was 28 passes completed out of 28 attempts for 159 passing yards. Low statistical numbers for Brock Purdy throughout an entirety of a game, averaging nearly 40 passing yards per quarter. It's dumpster Pelican-esque, if you ask me, in comparison to what he's been doing the past couple of years. He did have a touchdown pass, but he also contributed with an interception that you could argue was the decisive factor in this game, that one that was hauled in by Jonathan Hankins of the Seahawks. Jawan Jennings had 10 receptions for 91 receiving yards and a touchdown for the 49ers. But then when you compare that to Christian McCaffrey's 19 carries for 79 yards on the day, he didn't get a touchdown in the end zone, but he did contribute just as much production into moving the chains like Jennings did consistently. He also added 4 receptions for 27 yards on the day, but the 49ers just didn't have enough help to get it done. Nick Bosa on the defense added 2 tackles for loss with 2 quarterback hits, 1.5 sacks as well. He also had help from Leonard Floyd, who had a tackle for loss with 3 quarterback hits and 1.5 sacks on the day. The 49ers defense had 4 sacks total, and Isaac Yiadom had an interception that he contributed for this team as well. They just didn't have quite enough help to consistently get the job done. Dante says San Francisco out of the playoffs makes the path to the Super Bowl that much easier. And I got to agree with that. I'm going to have to give my man Dante this button right here. Oh, man, come on, StreamYard. I'm going to try to give you this button.
Yeah. Yeah.
StreamYard just absolutely messing with me, but it's not a total.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Just saying. But right here and now, when it comes to San Francisco being out the playoffs, makes the path to Super Bowl much easier. I say if that does come into fruition, you are spot on with that. But right now, it's looking like that is a possibility to keep on playing the way they have been and not finding ways to finish the game with W's. So with that being said, we're going to take this into another game that was a really good game this past week. Not quite as tight as this past one, but it was respectable enough to not put it in line with the ones that we talked about earlier that were completely. Let's go ahead and take it to that game. Right here with this game, we're talking about a game that could be resurfaced again in the playoffs. And that is between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. The Chiefs traveled to Buffalo to take on this really talented Buffalo Bills squad. Josh Allen was 27 of 40 for 262 passing yards with a touchdown and an interception on this day. When you look at that in comparison to what he also did on the ground, he also added 12 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. It's very respectable for quarterback-like numbers. On defense, Taylor Rapp added an interception along with Terrell Bernard as well. They both combined for 2 interceptions on the day. Excuse me. As a receiving core, Khalil Shakir had 8 receptions for 70 receiving yards. Curtis Samuel added another 5 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. And Amari Cooper only had 2 catches, but he did contribute 55 yards as well on the day for the Bills. Looking at the other side for the Chiefs, a team that came into this game undefeated, losing their first game of the year, falling to a record of 9-1 to a team known as the Buffalo Bills, who are 9-2 at this point. Chiefs still at the very top of the AFC for right now, but not for long when it comes to record, because Bills will have the edge if the Chiefs lose another game because of the 1v1 matchup. Mahomes was 23 of 33 on the day for 196 passing yards, 3 total touchdowns passed, but he also added 2 interceptions that you could argue was the decisive factor in this game. Kareem Hunt, newly reacquired, had 14 carries for 60 rushing yards on the day, averaging 4.3 yards per carry. Xavier Worthy, the rookie, who's been contributing pretty well for this team this year, added 4 receptions for 61 receiving yards and hauled in 1 of those 3 touchdowns by Mahomes. The other 2 were caught by Noah Gray, the tight end, who had 4 receptions for 23 yards on the day. And primarily, I would say that was the highlights for the offense, as Kamari Connor on the defense had 1 interception to help keep this game kind of close. But I guess you could argue that the interceptions thrown, both of them, by Mahomes, is what cost them the victory and gave them this. A decent game it was, but I think it's time to talk about an even better game that followed. And that game is the Sunday night game that we watched this past week. And that was between the Chargers and the Bengals. The Bengals coming into LA, scoring 27 points against the home team known as the Chargers, who put up a little bit more points than the Bengals, as they put up 34 points to the Bengals 27. Justin Herbert was on fire in this game when you look at the fact that he didn't throw any interceptions. But on the ground, it's a little bit of a different story because he did have a lost fumble. So, yes, halfway to on fire, halfway not. And when you look at his completions, he wasn't really on fire because he was under 50% on the day on his completions. He only had 17 total completions out of 36 attempts for 297 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 5 carries for 65 yards, but that's where the lost fumble comes into play, as he made that one miscue that kept this game as close as it was. The Chargers offense collectively had 155 rushing yards outside of Justin Herbert, and Ladd McConkey added 6 receptions for 123 receiving yards. Will Dissly, the tight end for the team, had 4 receptions for 80 yards as well, but also hauled in one of those 2 receiving touchdowns that were thrown by Justin Herbert. Tuli Tuipulotu had 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits, and part of that was also contributed by 1.5 sacks on the day. He was a big part of why this team was able to hold on to a 7-point victory. Joe Burrow was 27 completions for his passing out of 50 attempts. There were 50 times in this game at 356 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, along with 2 carries for 28 yards on the day. Rookie Chase Brown still been making an impact as well. 22 carries for 86 rushing yards, along with 5 receptions for 57 yards on the day. T. Higgins also added 9 receptions for 148 receiving yards and a touchdown. Bengals just didn't quite have enough to get over the hump. Statistically, you would think that they were able to do it. And considering the fact that they didn't really have any turnovers, it was just the fact that Evan McPherson, who missed 2 field goals, didn't really help the matters at all, because they would have only been down by 1 towards the end, and some calls would have probably been a little different, their play calling, I say, and they probably would have had different results had your kicker not let them down 2 out of 4 times. So, and looking at his 2 missed field goals that he had, they were both in the 4th quarter. I digress. Evan, you're part of the Dumpster Pelicans of the week, and we may be talking about you later when it comes to the Snowflake of the week. But for a team that started off pretty rough, it was starting to climb back up and then play this Chargers team, the Bengals just, got served another L, following to 4-7, and it's not looking good for their playoff hopes. And to the point that I don't even want to talk about them anymore. Now it's time to take it what Cole and I would both say is one of our favorite segments when we get to have this, and that is the upset of the week. This upset of the week is between 2 teams. 2 teams that have been playing pretty underwhelmingly, underperforming. Not fun to watch at all. But they're part of our upset of the week, especially when we look at the hype that was on this one team prior to the season. One that was led by Captain Ayahuasca. Okay. The sipping of the ayahuasca man. I'm talking about the quarterback of the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers, who hosted the Indianapolis Colts this past weekend and got served the big fat. If you didn't watch it, you didn't miss much. I'm just kidding. It was a pretty close game. Jets were touted to win this game, and it looked like for a good portion of it, they had a chance. But it just didn't come into fruition for them, as the upset was taken by the Indianapolis Colts, who were led by Anthony Richardson in this game, the young quarterback, second-year man starting for this Colts team. He was 20 of 30 in passes completed out of attempts for 272 passing yards and a touchdown passed. He also had 10 carries for 32 yards on the ground, with 2 total rushing touchdowns, contributing to 3 total touchdowns between passing and rushing. But he had 1 miscue that kept this game as close as it was. That was a lost fumble. Come on, kid. Butterfingers are not good. Let's get it together. Josh Downs also added 5 receptions for 84 yards on the day with a receiving touchdown. Kwity Paye had 6 solo tackles for 2 tackles for loss. Also, out of those 2 tackles for loss were 2 quarterback hits that were also 2 sacks. Good job, Mr. Paye. Now, on the other part of his special teams now for this team, for the Colts, May Gay. AA, MG, May Gay. 3 out of 3 for field goals with a long of 56 yards. Good job, May Gay. Because without you, they would not be in glee right now because they had that 1 extra field goal to beat the Jets. Aaron Rodgers on the other side. 22 passes completed for 29 attempts. 184 passing yards. And we're used to what Aaron Rodgers was doing before he came to the Jets, throwing like 300-yard passing games on average. And coming over here, and this year being his first full year, because last year he was knocked out of the season in 4 plays into the first game, didn't get to see much. This year has been very, very underwhelming for Aaron Rodgers, which has been the talk of the town, talk of the nation for anybody who's been watching or covering football. He did have 2 passing touchdowns, did not have any interceptions. He did decent, but this offense, when you think of the weapons they got at receiver, and even at tight end, they are just not finding ways to move the ball consistently. I mean, I know 7 incompletions is not a lot, but with 22 completions, you should have at least 210 passing yards, 220 in my opinion. So you're averaging 10 yards per pass, especially when you're paying someone $35 million a year like you're paying Aaron Rodgers. Just my opinion. But I digress on that. We'll talk about more things for the Jets right now. Breece Hall, 16 carries for 78 rushing yards and a touchdown. Also 7 receptions for 43 yards in the air with the receiving touchdown. Had 2 total touchdowns collectively on the game. Did his job. Just the rest of the team didn't do much to help his cause. Anders Carlson had 2 of 2 field goals for the day. 2 made field goals out of 2 attempts, and one of them was 58 motherfathering yards. And they still found a way to lose to a team in the Colts that has matched them into dumpster Pelican performances this year. The Colts are 5-6. Yes, I know. They're 1 game under 500. But this franchise needs some help in many other different ways. O-line, defense, like all phases, the front, the middle, and the back and the secondary. Okay? The Jets just need leadership because they're 3-8, but they have the talent on the team that they should be 8-3 right now. We should be talking about an 8-3 Jets team right now instead of a 3-8 that's like 1 loss away or 2 losses away from being completely mathematically eliminated from the playoffs when you think about how the trajectory of the other teams that are in the positives right now and what they are projected to do for the rest of this season. I know anything can happen in the week of football. I just don't see the Jets winning 6 straight games and finishing this year 9-8 on the cusp of a wild card appearance for the 6th or 7th seed of the AFC. I just don't see it at this point. When you lose a game like this, these are the games that are must-have games. And I've been saying this throughout several episodes of this show this year. This is episode 64 of Total Football Talk since we launched it in 2023. And I have said more in the past 2 months about how inconsistencies of this team, lack of leadership, the fact that, they talk about it on the major networks about how the man skipped camp and to go on a trip and, he's drinking ayahuasca again, hanging out in the cave, whatever the man's doing. There's a time and a place for everything. And even though part of your offseason was messed up because, of your rehabilitation to get back to the position, you obviously didn't rehabilitate enough because you can't even throw for 200 passing yards in the game. And that is sad when you think about the amount of money that you are literally robbing from this team. It's nothing in comparison to what Deshaun Watson has been doing for the Browns. You're not completely on that level, but you actually have the opportunity to play and prove yourself. They're actually making moves to benefit you and your preferences. Devontae Adams, bringing in your offensive coordinator that you like, he gets demoted. Then they move Todd Downing up, who you've worked with in the past before. It's not clicking, and especially against the Colts defense that's mediocre at best. You should have been the one that had like 31 to 34 points in this game, and the other team put up like 27 to 24 points, and that's kind of a lot for your Jets team to put up. 28 points on this Jets defense is pretty sad for this Jets defense that has been touted as, when we started this season, to be a top 5 defense and to be what they would be riding to go to the playoffs. And now we don't even have a single discussion about playoffs for your team because all you do lately is continuously take the Let's save myself from the rants for a minute and see what the comments got. Dante brings in, I love the NFL schedule, but hate the schedule in the season. Always a great game, but it sets Buffalo up for failure. So, Dante, let me ask you a question. Are you basically saying, and it's been proven, like you've been right, because 2021 was supposed to be their year. And then 2022 was supposed to be their year. And then 2023 was supposed to be their year. And now it's 2024, and nobody was talking about it because Stephon Diggs, the problem, was shipped out. But here we are again, stuff to potentially talk about. It's their year again. Are you saying that the Josh Allen-led Buffalo Bills are very similar to what the Indianapolis Colts were back in the 2000s with Peyton Manning? I'd say late 90s, like 99, because he was drafted in 98. They had a terrible year. They were 3-13 in 98. They flipped it around in 99 to where they were 13-3. So from 99 to 06, when he finally won that first Super Bowl, are you saying that this is like a reincarnation of those Colts teams that were like the regular season champs? And then they get to the playoffs, and then they are the playoff chumps. Are you saying that that's what we're going to see again from the Buffalo Bills? Or do you think that this team is absolutely mother-fathering serious for a change? Let me know here in the comments. Now, with that being said, we're going to take this past this game right here with the Jets because I'm just so tired about talking to the Jets because I'm ready to talk about the ultimate game of the week. It's time to bring some more positivity back up into this show and talk about what Cole and I would say would be the game of the week. And that game of the week is brought to you by Comey Media and Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. And that game this past week, week 11, by the way, we're not quite at week 12 yet on paper here, but for week 11, this was the divisional game between the Baltimore Ravens, who traveled to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. This game was a 2-point game at the end. Very, 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 very close. As the Steelers won 18-16 at home. Russell Wilson puts up 23 passes completed out of 36 attempts for 205 passing yards and an interception on the day. He also added 4 carries. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 carries. You can see me. For 0 yards. Come on, Russ. Najee Harris added more to that on the ground, though. He had 18 carries for 63 rushing yards, 4 receptions on the day for 30 receiving yards, collectively 93 total yards of offense out of Najee Harris. George Pickens put up 8 receptions for 89 yards in this game, did not score any touchdowns because Russell couldn't get any passing touchdowns to him. But the highlight of this day was 2 things. The Steelers' defense putting the pressure on the Ravens, keeping them to only 16 points. Part of that was due to Peyton Wilson's lone interception for the Steelers' defense. But the big stat line for the Steelers in this game was the fact that Chris Boswell scored 6 field goals yet again this season. Second time the man's gone 6 for 6 with field goals in the Steelers season. He had a long of 57 yards, scored all the points, all 18 points for the Steelers that helped lead to this divisional win that has helped this team remain on fire as of late. Lamar Jackson proves yet again when you have to put the ball in his hands in this game. He has proved that when you don't have the rushing game for the Ravens, when you take the rush away from Baltimore and you have to put the ball in his hands more, he struggles. Because out of 33 attempts, he only completed 16 passes for 207 yards. Did have a passing touchdown, but he added an interception to that stat line as well. Had 4 carries for 46 yards on the day, along with a defense that, had 4 sacks. That's what kept them in this game. Mr. Owe had 2 tackles for loss with 4 quarterback hits, and part of those hits included 2.5 sacks. Justin Tucker was also part of the woe is me tale for the Baltimore Ravens as he missed not 1, but 2 field goals and only made 1 of 3 attempts with a long of 54 yards. Derrick Henry in this game had 13 total touches against the Steelers in this Week 11 contest. 13 total touches by King Henry. That's not enough to help establish anything, as even though he did have 65 rushing yards out of those 13 carries and put up a touchdown, it just wasn't enough production for the Baltimore Ravens to get things going against the Steelers in Week 11. And that's why on the road in Pittsburgh, they were served the sorry, not sorry. Let's take it to the comments, as we have here. If anybody knows Spanish out here, I appreciate you for jumping on in there, champion. Being a Cardinals fan, you are a Cardinals fan. That's what I'm talking about. Vamos, Cardinals. I'm saying go. I'm guessing you're saying go Cardinals. Let me know out here if somebody could translate for me because I am currently hosting a program. Dante says, no, Baltimore is the regular season champs and a letdown in the playoffs. Buffalo, I think they will get overconfident because they beat them on the regular season, and then Kansas City make the changes. Okay, we'll see how that goes. For a newer franchise, Baltimore has probably one of the greatest rivalries in the NFL. I think it goes NFC East, all teams, then Baltimore, then Pittsburgh. I agree. And it's the NFC East, because the teams that are in it for one and the amount of times they've played each other throughout the 124, 125 seasons of the NFL at this point, these four teams have played each other the most because they've been in the league the longest. You know, the Cowboys, the least amount of times. They didn't come to 1960 as the Dallas Texans and converted to the Cowboys. But the Eagles, the Giants, and the formerly known as the Redskins, now Commanders, are the oldest part of the oldest teams in the NFL when you think of the Bears and the Packers as well. So they've played each other so many times. And that's why these rivalries were even born before the NFC East was even created back in the day. I think it was like the 70s when the NFC East was created, or maybe the early 80s. Yes, it's Spanish for Go Cardinals. So I was close. Shout out to Champy for joining us here in the comment stream. And hopefully you are a new subscriber and also a new fan of what we've got out here in these streams. But looking at this game for what it is between Baltimore and the Steelers, these two teams, they've put up some good stats. They put up some good numbers. And they still have to face each other one more time before Christmas on December 21st, the next time they will be in Baltimore. But for these two teams, I want to go over their last 6 remaining games that they have. In the upcoming games, the Ravens take on the Chargers in LA. They take on the Eagles in Baltimore. They take on the Giants in New York. Again, they take on the Steelers this time in Baltimore. They have the Texans in Houston, and they also host the Browns in Baltimore for their last game on January 5th. So they do have some challenges with the Chargers, the Eagles, the Steelers again, and the Texans, who have not been like they were last year, but they can still put the pressure on you. And especially if it's that day on Christmas, 4 days after your Steelers game, and the Texans are trying to make a play for the playoffs, and they've only got that game and one more left, you know you're going to get the best out of them. So I'd say those last 3 games, especially against the Browns too, because the Browns have started to turn it on with Jameis, and their defense is putting on pressure. You look at what they did last night, I would say you got a pretty tough schedule there, Baltimore. So I'd have to agree with Dante. They're looking like they're going to be pretenders between these two teams. And the Steelers in their last 6 games, they don't have it much easier. They've got the Bengals in Cincinnati, which I feel like they can win that game. It is a division game, but looking at the struggles the Cincinnati team has had, I don't doubt that the Steelers can get this win, especially with the way their defense has been applying pressure too. You also got to look at the fact that they host the Browns in Pittsburgh 2 weeks after sustaining a tough loss to them in the snowball game over in Cleveland. The 3rd out of 6 games they have left is when they host the Eagles. So Philadelphia has the Steelers and the Ravens. That's going to be challenging for them too. But then the week after the Eagles game, they take on the Ravens in Baltimore again, like we talked about. They also have the Chiefs in the second to last game of the season in Pittsburgh on Christmas Day. And they also play the Bengals one more time, this time in Pittsburgh on January 5th. So for these two teams, it's going to be interesting to see how things go. I think it's more so favored on Pittsburgh's side. I'll have to agree with Dante with what he says. But we're going to have to see how things shape up over the remaining 6 weeks. And especially when we have other teams. There's 30 other teams in the NFL that can make plays for the make viable attempts for the playoffs. And we shall see how things go. But before we get to that, for the first time in this episode, we're going to take our first commercial break. And when we come back, we still have the snowflake of the week, the dog of the week. And we also have to review the upcoming games for week 12 that haven't taken place yet. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take this on into our first commercial break, and I'll see you here in a couple minutes.
All right, Let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Break.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy and now begins a future one of matrimony, or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network, in association with Comey Media Incorporated, proudly present The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Hey, Eagles fan, join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast, every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets.
Everything Boston. I love you, you morons. New Kids from the Block, New Edition,
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason Whitlock.
Where my dogs? I guess I'm the one today that has to bring the action for the dog of the week. And for my dog of the week, I go to Drew. And that's me. I'm right here. Just before we get to that, I've had some people that have asked me, and it's funny, recently, they've been watching this, what do you do during the commercial breaks? First of all, I take a deep breath. I breathe, take a quick break. That's what I do during the commercial breaks. This one, I actually did a few push-ups, surprisingly, just because I felt like it needed to get the blood pumping again, needed to get energized. Keep on carrying this project through episode 64. I had to do it. And before I did that, I clicked the button for the commercial break. But glad to see you guys back. I will get to the comments here in a minute. But right here and now, when I have to pick a dog of the week, it's kind of tough. I mean, there's certain games where there was multiple players that made impacts that I want to say deserve to be the dog of the week. And there's certain games where they won too easily that I can't really say you decisively deserve to be the dog of the week. And then there's some teams that played absolute dumpster Pelican teams that I just can't. And a part of me wants to give it to Jared Goff after coming back from the 5 interception game to throw 4 touchdowns, only had 5 incompletions and threw for 412 yards. But something tells me to shift this into a little bit of a different light. and go with someone who's a rookie. And no, I'm not going to go with the rookie from my team because one, they lost the game, and two, he didn't put up decisively enough numbers for me to put him above the rest. I'm going to look at Denver because of what Denver did to the Falcons, because of how highly touted the Falcons were coming into this season, and what Bo Nix, the rookie, did. 28 completions out of 33 attempts for 307 yards in the altitude for 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers. Did also add 2 carries for 5 yards. I know the numbers aren't quite as high as what Goff did for the Lions, but look at what the Lions did in that game against a team that's been absolutely trash in the Jaguars this year. The Falcons haven't been trash. They've had some miscues, but they haven't been trash like the Jaguars have. Okay. And you threw 4 touchdowns on a suspect defense for 412 yards, that being Jared Goff, and he had 4 carries for 21 yards. I jokingly talked about that earlier. But when it comes to my dog of the week choice, although in a lot of normal circumstances, I would put him as my dog of the week, and I'm not throwing any shade towards him. But when you look at a rookie who's in his 10th game of the season, completing 28 passes of his 33 attempts for 4 touchdowns for 307 yards as well, you can't not give it to that kid. That's why I have to say Bo Nix is my dog of the week. I'm not turning a cheek, and I'm not saying it otherwise. It's time to take it to the snowflake of the week.
Total football talk.
Man, I was wrong. I clicked the wrong button. We're going to go to the 2-minute drill. I'll go to the snowflake of the week after that. I clicked the wrong button again. Let me click the right one.
Total football talk.
That's why I can't let me do this by myself. I clicked the wrong button sometimes. I'm just kidding. But with that being said, we do have a comment before we get into the 2-minute drill. I do want to acknowledge from Dante. He says, when Baltimore loses in the playoffs and the Bills eventually lose, does Lamar and Josh get the Dak treatment? That's a very, very, very good question. I don't think Lamar does, because you got to look at the fact that the man has 2 MVPs already. Okay, you gotta put some respect on his name for that. I don't think you can put him in Dak treatment for that. Josh Allen's getting close, but Josh Allen has consistently had better teams than what Dak has, and has put up better production in the regular season consistently, and has made the playoffs on a more consistent basis than Dallas has. I mean, don't even get me started with this team, a team that I didn't actually click this button for earlier, but I think I'm going to click it right now.
This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation.
Man, you ain't going to the Super Bowl. Damn! Talk about you, Dad. Damn! As long as you're with the Cowboys. When it comes to those hopes, you might as well just
delete.
This just in.
Ain't nobody calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, are you still involved? Delete!
And to add another layer to this,
you guys want to hear a fucking story?
I still believe they're not going to the Super Bowl. And if anybody comes to you saying they're going to the Super Bowl in the next year, 2, 3 years, under Jerry Jones' leadership, by making decisions in the front office, just click this button for them.
Hell to the no, to the no, no, no. Hell no, to the no.
Because those of you that think that they got a chance still after everything that's transpired,
Stop it. Get some help.
come on, bruh. What would Rick James say to that good old Rick? Rickety Rick. Rick would say. He would definitely not say that.
I think I got my swagger back. Oh.
It looks like Rick has disappeared, Sick. I wanted to click the Rick button for you, but he would say that was absurd. But I will bring the button back, I promise. I don't know what happened to it, but I will find the button for next time. I tried to call Tam this week, and it turns out the number doesn't work anymore. That's what's great about recording these things.
This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation.
It's enough of that. It's enough of that as we slightly did this. So we've gone through the Grand Champ of the week. Let's go ahead and take it to the 2-minute drill. And with the 2-minute drill, let me turn the background music down a little bit. My man Cole normally handles those duties and does them very well. With this, let me know if you can hear me in the comments very well and the music's not overpowering, because it sounds like I'm doing pretty good, but we'll keep it rocking and rolling. With the 2-minute drill, we got to look at the teams that are on bye for week 12. These teams that are on bye, I know he's got the button. There it is. Teams that are on bye for week 12. The Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, the Saints, the Jets, thankfully, and the Jaguars, thankfully. Looking forward to not recapping their games this upcoming week. But these 6 teams are on bye, and I am so glad that we, again, do not have to talk about them next Monday when we are back on track. But right here and now, let's take a look at the first game of the Sunday games on the 2-minute drill. The Minnesota Vikings. Man, this Minnesota Vikings team, they are on the road again. Got to take a look at what this Minnesota Vikings team has done over the course of this season. They're 7-3. They are definitely making themselves proud based on what they have been doing, what they have been touted to do. They are 8-2, my apologies, so far on this year. They are 8-2. And they are traveling to good old Chicago to take now I'm not buttoned. So now that we're back, I was reading something and I just disappeared. Thank you, Sick Diggy, for checking on me. I am still here. I clicked the wrong button because I was on another page when I was looking up the standings, because sometimes there's typos and sometimes there's not, and sometimes you got to go with the flow. So again, as I was saying before I disappeared, right? The Vikings, 3-game winning streak. The Bears, a 4-game losing streak. The Bears are hosting the Vikings at home, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time. This game will be on Fox this Sunday. I have the Vikings improving to 9-2 and the Bears falling to 4-7 in this game. If you agree or disagree, let me know down in the comments, but that is exactly who I'm going with in this game. Moving on to game number 2, the Detroit Lions. This Detroit Lions team standing tall at the top of NFC North, 9-1 on this season, winners of 8 consecutive games after starting 1-1 on the season. Go to this town known as Indianapolis in Indiana. Colts, the team that's who's played in this city. They, in this division that they are in, the Colts, they are the lowly Colts, but they are also in second place in the AFC South, 2 games behind the Texans. They are currently 5-6 on a 1-game winning streak, taking on this Lions team that's absolutely on fire. I still give them no shot, that being the Colts. They fall to 5-7 on this day. The Lions improved to still be the best team in the NFC. I wouldn't say they improved to be. They still remain the NFC's best team of the entire league. NFC, the conference, I would say. They improved to 10-1, and they will have won their 9th consecutive game after this game. Shout out to my man Hawk. In the third game on this Sunday, the previous 2 games were on Fox, but this next game is on CBS. The New England Patriots travel to Miami to take on the Dolphins, another division matchup within the AFC East. The Dolphins are 4-6 hosting this game against the 3-8 Patriots. I do believe the Dolphins will win this game at home. They will improve to a 5-6 record. The Patriots will fall to 3-9 and be one step closer to a top 5 NFL draft pick in 2025. Moving on to our next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to New York. I almost said New York. New York or New Jersey. They go to Jersey, take on the Giants. That's what they're going to do. They're going to go to Jersey, take on the Giants. And in this game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they haven't been playing like dumpster Pelicans, but they've been playing kind of subpar this season, in my opinion, as they are 4-6. Losers of 4 consecutive games after winning the first 4 out of their 6 games. Started the year 4-2. Now, as a result of that 4-game losing streak, have fallen to 4-6. Take on the lowly New York Giants, who are actually playing worse than them. We've lost 5 consecutive games. They are 2-8. Just recently demoted Danny Dimes to 3rd string and then released his mother, father himself today after still owing him almost $2 million per game. Who do you think I'm going to pick in this game? I'm picking the Buccaneers to snap their losing streak on the road against the Jersey Giants. Over there, led by Tommy Cutlets. He's going to have a plate of cutlets in his locker made by mommy at home when he gets there. That's what's going to happen. Tommy Cutlets. He's going to play pretty respectable, better than Danny Dimes, but they're still going to lose the game and get served this by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's keep it interesting. This next game is another divisional rival contest, 1:00 p.m. on this Sunday. This time, this game is on Fox. It's between the lowly Dallas Cowboys, who are 3-7, losers of their 5 straight consecutive games, taking on the Washington Commanders, who are 7-4. They are losers of 2 consecutive games, but they played a very, very tough matchup in the past 2 games. On the road, the Cowboys are on the road, the Cowboys are 3-2 as they come into Northwest Stadium to face the Commanders. That's the only positive thing they have going for them because they are 0-5 at home, being the Cowboys. So it's looking even better for the Commanders when they face each other here for the second game here soon. But as a result, the Commanders are also 4-1 at home. So looking at it for what it is, it's really good chance the Commanders are going to take the win, and I'm going to give them the win. I'm going to say the Commanders win this game to win their 8th win of the season. They will get themselves to doubling their total from last year, because they were 4-13. This win will set them up by the worst they could do would be 8-9. But they're not. The worst they're going to do could be potentially 9-8, because they're not losing to the Cowboys twice in a year. The Commanders are going to win this first of 2 contests that they have and serve the Cowboys the big bang. Word to your mother, because this is about to get... Because the Cowboys are a total. They will more than likely be my number 1 dumpster Pelican of the week next week. And you know that it is not a... Get the father out of here. You thought I was going to say something else. But come on now, we're on the air. You want to find out me talking like that? You give me a call on the phone in about 45 minutes to an hour when I'm off the air. And then I'll say the other word. But right here and now, I have the Commanders winning this Sunday contest. If you're a Cowboy fan, this message was brought to you by this opening statement that we have to say about the Cowboys.
This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation.
Now,
Acknowledge me.
come on now. Let's move on to the next game that we have on this Sunday between hopefully a better contest by 2 teams. And that, after that 1 o'clock game from the Commanders, we still have 2 more to go through. That is when the 9-1 Kansas City Chiefs travel to Carolina to take on the dumpster Pelican Panthers. The Panthers, who were 3-7 in NFC South. They have won 2 consecutive games after starting 1-7, but they absolutely have no chance against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to serve the big old... Sorry, not sorry at all. That's just what's going to happen in this game. Let's move on to a better contest. So for this next one, the last of the 1 o'clock games, the very, 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 very lowly Tennessee Titans, who are still not in last in their division because the Jags are in their same division. They are 2-8, losers of 2 consecutive games for their squad. Travel to Houston to take on a Texans team that is 7-4 at this point. But they, in comparison to what they were doing last year, you would expect, higher expectation. You would have higher expectations for them this season, and you would noticeably see that they've regressed. If you talk to a fan of the team, my partner on this show, who's generally with me every episode except for today due to timing and everything, he would agree with what I'm saying when it comes to this. However, when it comes to this matchup, the fact that they are in Houston, they're playing a lowly Tennessee Titans team that is the reason that they have a Houston or a Texans team now, because of the Houston Oilers moving to Tennessee back in the day to become the Titans. There's nothing more that Cole wants to see than the Texans mollywop the Titans, and I'm going to support his cause right here and now and tell you that will fathering happen. Moving on to the next game, this being the beginning of the 4 o'clock later games in the day. There's only 4 games that happen after 4 o'clock, 3 of them in the 4 o'clock window, as the first one is at 4:05, when a team that has been absolutely playing pretty well this season, considering they have a lot of new pieces, a lot of new faces, and are coming back from literally the rebuild death of what a franchise could be. That being the Denver Broncos, who are 6-5, winners of only 1 consecutive game. But they take on a team has had their tales of woe this year, and that being the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a divisional matchup. The Broncos are in third. The Raiders are in fourth, but the Broncos have a 4-game lead for third place. They are 6-5, and the Raiders are 2-8. Raiders, losers of 6 consecutive games, host the Denver Broncos. Doesn't matter if it's altitude or not, if the Broncos are at home or not, they are winning this game against the Raiders in Las Vegas. Now to our second of 3 games that are in the 4 o'clock window, this one being a 425 contest. The San Francisco 49ers travel to Green Bay to take on the Packers. The Packers have been a sleeper team. I've been saying this throughout this season. They are in third in their division. They do have a 7-3 record, but there's a really good chance that 2 of the 3 wild card teams come from this division because of how well they're all playing. Because the Vikings are 8-2, the Packers are 7-3, and I don't think either one of those 2 teams are going to get past the Detroit Lions, who are 9-1 right now. The Packers are winners of 1 consecutive game, but they're playing against a team here that, has had their own struggles this year. They are only 5-5 at this point, and they also know, that being the 49ers, if they continue to lose, their hopes for the playoffs continue to dwindle and look like the reach is getting further and further away from themselves. Based on the caliber of talent in this game, I think there's a really good chance the Packers could beat the 49ers. But to give hope to their season, because they are in the bottom of their division right now, because the division is tight between the Cardinals, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers for the NFC West. Even though they are 5-5, they're only 1 game out from the lead because the Cardinals are only 6-4, and they've won 4 consecutive games to get to that point, and they got to lose one at some point. I think the 49ers win this game against the Packers. They find a way. It's going to be close. I might be wrong with this pick, but I'm going to stand firm with it and say the 49ers get this win primarily because there's going to be pressure applied on Green Bay at this point, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to totally handle it, knowing that you have the Lions at the top of the division, you have the Vikings right there, and the pressure's on you just to make the playoffs as a wild card team, and you're playing a team that is starting to get healthy again with the 49ers, and they have to make their impact. They're going to make it this week on the road. 49ers win this game to improve to 6-5. In the last of the 3-4 o'clock games, speaking of the division, we have the Cardinals, who are 6-4, taking on the 5-5 Seahawks, who are in the same division. Based on what happened this past week, we already saw something pretty mother-fathering special between these 2 teams. I mean, you cannot argue that these 2 teams right here didn't produce something that was pretty cool. And what they did, whoa. I'm actually wrong again, because there is a typo in this slate right here. The 49ers, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks right here. Looking at this for what it is, I think I read it wrong. I did. That's on me. So the Cardinals and the Seahawks take on each other at 425. So based on what that is, that was a miscue by me. That was not the slate. I own it. I'll reel it back in. This game, 425 in Seattle. And based on what Seattle did this past week against the 49ers in a very tight game, that's where I guess I confused myself. I think they can do that against the Cardinals. Even though the Cardinals have won 4 straight, and they've proven that they are for real. Again, they have to lose at some point. And based on what the Seahawks were able to pull off against a team that has gone to the Super Bowl twice within the past 4 years, in the San Francisco 49ers, I have to put respect on their name. I think the Seahawks and Geno are going to be able to do it. I'll probably be wrong. Cardinals probably find a way to win the game and remain at the top of the division. But I'm going to stand firm with this pick. I'm going to say the Seahawks win this game. And now it's time to take it to the Sunday night game. Dante's going to love this one because we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles coming in as the road team. This team at the top of the NFC East right now. They are 8-2, winners of 6 consecutive games right now, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the LA Rams, who are in second in the NFC West, winners of 1 consecutive game. And the Rams only have a 3-2 home record this season. The Eagles are 4-1 on the road. With that being said, the team that wins this game is going to be the road team serving the... to the LA Rams. That is my pick. I got the Eagles winning this game and pretty decisively, probably by at least 10 points or more. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but that's going to happen. That's my pick. That's what I feel about it. And that's what I see happening in this mother-fathering game. And now that we've gone through the slate, I know that with this game, because this is basically the show that we had from this past Monday, whether we're doing on a Friday, we would normally, maybe preview Monday and Thursday's games, but Monday's games already happened and Thursday's games already happened. So we'll recap those games on Total Football Talk Extra tomorrow. But for right now, to stay with the flow of the show, we're going to go ahead and take it into the Snowflake of the Week, because the Snowflake of the Week is where I got to drop the dimes. And the dimes happen now.
Total Football Talk.
Hey, it's that time for the Snowflake of the Week. And to start his pick with the Snowflake of the Week, we're going to go with Drew, because he's the only one on the show today. But with that being said, there's multiple picks that I could have for Snowflake of the Week. Let's take a look at, there was so many lopsided contests in this game. You can look at what Kirk Cousins did against the Broncos. You can look at no, you can't pick on Jameis because he was pretty close with that one. Uncle Rico threw an interception, but he also had 30 incompletions. I can't really go with him. You look at what the Titans did. You can go with their entire team because they're absolutely terrible. Mac and Cheese for the Jaguars is somebody you could talk about. But I think I'm going to go with special teams. And because of this team that has been so close into what they've done this year, I think I'm going to have to go with, and I'm so close with the way they've lost and so close with the way they've won as well. And they've been rebuilding themselves with the year. They always have slow starts over the past 5 years and find ways to keep nicking at the heels from the other teams. I'm going to have to go with the special teams for this team in Cincinnati for this past Week 11 game that they had against the Chargers. Okay. They lost 34-27, and their field goal kicker, known as Evan McPherson, missed 2 field goals in the fourth quarter, a time that was definitely detrimental to this team, that was decisive enough, the fact that they lost by a possession. They lost by 7 points. So if you made those 2 field goals, you would have applied the pressure. You would have only been down by 1. There would have been a chance for you to regain another possession, maybe kick another field goal. Instead of missing 2, you would have made 3 in the fourth quarter, and you would have won by a point. No, you would have won by 2. Sorry, Colonial Heights math. But I had to think about it for a second. But no, Evan McPherson, missed 2. And that's why this team lost in the manner of what they did. I'm going with him. I'm interested to see what you guys are saying here in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and review some comments while I got a second. And then we'll come back to this. So, yes. Thank you, Sick, for acknowledging that things happen and stuff like that with technical difficulties. I appreciate you. Sick Diggy says it's an absolute dumpster fire within either New York franchises this season. I absolutely agree with you, and I'm going to give you the big O.
Yeah.
After that, we also have, unless the Cowboys can get their act together, it's the Commanders to lose. The Commanders take this game with a little fuss. Oh, yeah. And I think it's going to be a tight matchup because it's a divisional matchup, but at the same time, you can't go against the Commanders in this game. You just can't. Cowboys are trying to tank for Shadur Sanders or maybe even Travis Hunter. Who knows what's in the mind of Jerry Jones at this point. He might even tank and try to get a center with the number 1 overall pick. That's how delusional this man is at this point. Don't get me started. And yes, Dante, fly Eagles fly with your matchup that you have this upcoming weekend. Even though I can't root for you when we're playing against you, and I know we're in the same division. If there's any other team that I would like to see with my team along the top of the division, it would be yours because you deserve it, my man. Now, snowball of the week is the New York Giants. Thanks to Saquon and wasting 6 years to another 6 years after drafting a bad quarterback.
You like that? You like that?
I do like that.
Oh, my brother, testify.
When it comes to the Giants being a good team this year, not only that, but again, when it comes to the Giants being a good team this year,
That was a lie.
I had to. I really did. But yes, I see your pick for it. But with the snowflake of the week and the dog of the week, sometimes we'll pick an offense or a defense or even a special teams. But I just felt like a kicker who has been pretty solid and pretty reliable at different points throughout the past couple of years. And you put him in this position, and he misses not 1 but 2 field goals in the fourth quarter that make a difference in this game. I had to pick him. So sorry we don't agree on that one, but I do like your pick for the New York Giants because they are always terrible. But for this, I had to go with that choice in the field goal kicker. Six says it's been a disaster this season for the Giants. It absolutely has, bro. It really has. And it's not looking good for them going forward. I feel bad for Brian Daboll. He is a pretty decent coach, but he made a bad choice into where he went, a few years back. And I just hope that they don't cut the cord with him a little too soon, because if he had better pieces around him, they would play pretty well because he is a pretty good coach. I mean, he did get the best out of Daniel Jones in that one season a couple of years back. And ever since then, they fell off the rails. Dante says, I agree, but come on. It's the G-men and the Cowboys. Always laughable. I'm not going to argue with that, my man. I'm really not. Straight up facts, valid points. Guys, we got one more commercial to get to. And then when we come back, we've got the when we come back. Actually, do we have another commercial? I don't think so. Nah, we don't. We're only doing one commercial right now. So I saved it. That's awesome because we only have one more thing to really go over now because I've been rocking and rolling through this. And that is the post game. Man, I miss Cole, but should be back together on Monday.
As long as it's one. It's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
We did it, people. We're at the post game now. We went through the recap of week 11. We went through the preview for week 12 without previewing the Monday and Thursday games because Ryan and I are going to review that on tomorrow's episode of Total Football Talk Extra. It will be at 1:00 p.m. Eastern time. I haven't decided tonight if I'm going to do the Commander's Gridiron Report tonight. If I do, it's going to be in about 2.5 hours because I do have one thing I need to get to after this to work within my time for today. So if I do the Commander's Gridiron Report tonight, it'll be at 10 p.m. Eastern time, maybe 10:30. probably closer to 10:30. So in about a little less than 3 hours. If not, I'm going to do that tomorrow afternoon after Total Football Talk Extra, because Ryan McCarthy was gracious enough to work with me on moving Extra back to tomorrow, because the main show of Total Football Talk got pushed back to about the time window from when we would normally be doing Total Football Talk Extra. So tomorrow we have to review the CFL Grey Cup from this past Sunday, as well as the Monday Night Football contest between the Texans and the Cowboys, and last night's game between the Browns and the Steelers and the Snowball Fest that I will like to call. And we'll give, a little bit more of an in-depth analysis, because it'll be two of us talking tomorrow. On this past Monday, I was experiencing technical difficulties with my internet service provider. Cole was doing okay, but he actually had a meeting that day that would have actually made it to where he would have been late to the show, and we would have probably been able to do the second half together. But because my internet was messing up until about where I had 15 minutes left in the time window to do a 2.5 hour episode, there was no way I was going to be able to make that happen and go to work. So once Tuesday got here, then Wednesday got here, and Thursday got here, and I primarily work Monday through Thursday in a night shift that bleeds into the next day. And then with my sleep schedule, it just makes it tough if we try to do this after Monday. So that's why this got pushed back to Friday evening. So to those of you, Sick Diggy and Dante, who've been, the main ones commenting throughout this show, thank you very much, guys, because this is a typical time that we're on between the two platforms, because we're both co-producing the Total Football Talk Extra project. This is not what you were expecting on this. So even though it was NFL football, something that was a little bit more engaging, Total Football Talk Extra was not here, and I appreciate you working with me on the difference. I do know that Total Football Talk Extra tomorrow will be more than likely not the last ever, but the last for now that Ryan McCarthy and I will be doing together, unless he has some breaking news for us tomorrow, because he has some things going on throughout the holidays that he might not be able to make it on Fridays. And with that, since this is a Total Football Talk Extra project that's part of this Total Football Talk program, I do have an announcement for that, but I'm going to encourage you to tune into that tomorrow when I'm with Ryan to hear that. And that episode will be airing live between 1 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. tomorrow afternoon Eastern time. I still have to set it up and everything, which I'll set it all up tonight for that. But Ryan McCarthy and I will both be here for Extra tomorrow. Again, Commander's Gridiron Report will either be tonight in about 3 hours, or it will be tomorrow afternoon after Total Football Talk Extra. It's just this week has gone by pretty fast, and I'm just doing my best to get the content out there. So again, that's why you're seeing these on different days, and we're still finding ways to fit it in, because my man put in a lot of work with that slate, wanted to make sure it didn't go to waste, and that's why I found a way to get it going tonight. But with all that being said, we do have one more comment. Well, we got two more comments we got to review real quick. Six says, hey, you won't get any argument from me at Dante Hill. I hear you, man. There it is. Because everybody here in the comments so far absolutely despises the Cowboys. And Six says, no problem, Matt. Drew Willingham is completely understandable, and I completely understand, you understanding me, and I meant to say I completely appreciate it, because, again, exhaustion is in there. It's been a wild week, but I'm glad to still make this happen with you guys. If you are tuning into this for the first time, whether it's live or in the replay, if you're not subscribed to either channel, whether it's Comey Media or Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome, please click the subscribe button. Please click the like button on the video. Please share it with your friends. Let's help get us out there in the algorithms a little bit more. We do put in a good amount of work with these projects. And although we are early into our production stages with these brands, we have been putting a decent amount of work into it for quite some time. And we've been doing some growing, and we just want to see it grow some more. But we can't do that without the help of you guys out here in these streams. My man Cole and I would mainly sit here and give you a pretty good in-depth recap or preview that would be an addition to what we've been talking about throughout the episode at this point. But because it's mainly been me talking, well, it's only been me talking in this episode, and I've already given my thoughts throughout, I don't really have much to add in the post game, except for we've only really got seven good weeks of NFL football left, because there are teams that still have a bye left. And looking at this for what it is, no, actually, yeah, we do have 7 weeks of football left. Looking at this for what it is, there's still a lot that can happen. There are certain teams we can already say are a lock for the playoffs: the Lions, the Chiefs, the Bills, okay? And we can already get our thoughts and predictions out on who's going to win it all. All I'm going to say is this, and I can speak very firmly, being a fan of a team that has not been playing well throughout the majority of my life. We got 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, but the first one I was still in Huggies, as I was a year old, and the second one I was 5, so I was still in kindergarten when this was going on, okay? For that being said, I want to encourage those of you, whether you are a Commanders fan, whether you are a Lions fan, mainly the Commanders fans and to teams that are not used to winning. The Lions have been getting used to winning over the past few years, but they're still remaining humble for the most part because of what they've gone through. I mean, they went through an 0-16 season, and the Commanders weren't even that bad throughout the tenure of Daniel Snyder. But what I encourage you, and hopefully some of you who were drinking too much of the Kool-Aid up until these past 2 weeks when they've lost 2 consecutive games, remain humble, because it can change just like that. Not for long, league. Somebody can get hurt, can change the trajectory of what you had been building within just a year. We saw it in 2012 with RG3. Remain humble, stay calm, enjoy what you're watching, because the majority of these games, fans of these teams are getting treats throughout, because you're seeing great play that you're not used to seeing. And the best part is another offseason or 2 of additions and subtractions for the good and for the betterment of the franchise. They'll only get better from here. It's only up from here and from where they were last offseason. So remain humble, stay calm, enjoy what you're seeing. Enjoy being a fan of whatever team you are watching, whatever you cover, whatever you do out here in these streams. We've had one fun episode for episode 64, and I've only got one thing to tell you before the outro. Well, 2 things. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, being a loyal supporter, whether you're watching live or syndicated. And most importantly, as always, we've got to look at this first. I got one step ahead.
As long as it's one. It's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
I was about to go into my saying, but I wanted to make sure that I show love for our social media plugs. If you want to find Cole, you will do less work if you just go to this, flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. If you do that, look for him. You can find all of his social media plugs there. If you want to go to do a little bit more work, you can go to my homes for Cash App, Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. Remember to tune in tomorrow for Total Football Talk Extra so you can see myself and this man right here. With all that being said, we've only got one more thing to do, and that's look at one awesome outro. For myself, Drew Willingham, and for those of you watching live or syndicated, as always, please stay safe out here in these streets. You don't have to go home, but you got to get yourself on up out of here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and look forward to seeing y'all in the next episode for 65. This was episode 64 of Total Football Talk.